Welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to take a look at building complex road junctions in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and there's two reasons why I'm doing it. The first one is simply that I've been asked to do it because I've had people post comments and saying would I make a video talking about the techniques involved in building these types of junctions like I've got in front of me here. And the second reason is that I'm in my current 5-point series. I'm going to put a lot more focus on building you could say a highway network, which means I'm going to be building these types of junctions. And originally I was going to do this video as part of the 5-point series, and then I got started doing it, and then I suddenly realized that when you're playing in realistic mode, it's not quite so easy to explain what you're doing. So I've now decided to do this as a separate video, and this video is going to consist of several parts. In the first part, I'm just going to go over some of the key basics that you need to be aware of when you're wanting to build road structures like this, and also talk about some of the traps that you can fall into. The second part, what I'm going to do is give you a bit of a tour of this junction here and talk about how you need to approach building these types of junctions, and then we'll move on and actually build a junction which I intend to use in the 5-point series. And then at the end I'm just going to talk very quickly about cloning and the advantages and disadvantages of using cloning as part of this process, and how cloning can give you some consistency in your builds. Anyway, introduction out the way, let's just start with the basics. Now, the most important thing that you need to be aware of when you are building structures like this, because as you can see here that the way the roads are laid out are kind of on a fairly precise pattern, which means that you do need to use the snapping tools. And one thing you need to be aware of is that there's two types of snapping in the game, and one is down in the bottom right hand corner here. This is called near snap. I'm just going to press F4 and turn that off because I'm going to start with the other form of snapping, which is if you press F1 you get a grid like this, and what this is orientated. Now again, when you're building complex road junctions, the grid is quite important, and if you press it a second time, if you look at the bottom right hand corner, you'll see that you get a little symbol come up which just says that grid snapping's been enabled. And by grid snapping is that if you build a road like this, you get a road there, and then what will happen is you can put another road right alongside it like that. And this is the way I prefer to use for spacing highways. Now the other way grid snapping can be useful is that if you can see where the node point is, if you press H, what you can see is the nodes, and the node points actually align with the grid, but there's also one in between. But if you pick one that's there, what you can do is actually do some pretty useful angles as well. So you can do this here, go out there, and I think you can get sometimes, oops, let's get rid of that a little bit. I think we'll be okay. And sometimes if the angle's shallow enough, you can get a third one out the center, but obviously I've gone out at 45 degrees. So this is the type of snapping that you would use when laying out roads. It's quite useful for the angles and also getting connections. And then if you press F4, which turns on the near snap, but what we'll do is just press F1, bring the grid back on, but we don't have the other snapping done. If I now start here, the road, oops, no, and we put this up here, what you're seeing now is the snapping isn't following the grid. It's a snapping distance between the two roads here. And what defines this distance is the relationship between the two. So this is useful for doing certain types of road placement, like say for example, you want that road there, and then you want the other road right alongside it. Now if I turn this off and put on the other form of snapping, what you'll find is that you get this effect. It gets quite difficult. You can't actually get the snapping there. If we turn that off, what you can see, you can get close, but the game does all sorts of weird things. So the nearby snapping is quite useful when you want two roads running side along. It's also useful when you're laying railway tracks as well. that's the difference between the two snappings. Now, one thing you do need to be aware of is if I turn on the so both snappings are on, you can see you've got the symbol down the bottom left and the bottom right. Now if I go back to here and come here, what you will see is that the F4 snapping overrides the F1 snapping, so that is nearby snapping. So you can't no longer, you can pick up a point out here, but you can see the game gets a little bit odd when you've got both on. So when you're building complex road structures like this, you need to be very much aware over what form of snapping that you're actually using. Now, another reason why you'd be using F4 is that if I turn F4 off and then we get the single track road, what you'll see is the snap point is the center of the road here, and which is, yeah, I mean, it's okay. If I do it on this one, what you'll see is that, so you get a road in the center here, but you don't, it kind of looks a bit odd. But if you turn F4 on, what you get then is the snapping point moves over to each lane of the road. So you get this effect like that. Now, the other thing you want to bear in mind is that when you're doing these one-way roads, these are the ones that were introduced in the recent update. When you build the road, the direction of travel is always in the direction that you build, but you can actually reverse it using the same tool as what you'd use when you set up one-way roads in this way. So you can keep changing them here, and that's probably the second most important thing. So just a quick immediate recap is that if you don't learn anything else, just get your head around the snapping, because if you don't get that sorted out, you're going to have all sorts of problems with alignment when you actually get to working on a junction like this. And the second one is this directionality, because one of the things that you will find is that if you get things wrong, you can build a perfectly good junction and it won't actually go. Now, another thing you need to be aware of with these roads here is that there is no bridge version. So if you want to build one-way roads like this, they've got to be on the ground. They can't, there's no way you can bridge over. So that's another key point that you need to be aware of, that these are only on the ground. There's no bridging option. One thing you can do though is, again, I'll just show you what you can do with these roads very quickly. I don't want to spend too long on this. What you can do is go there, put another one right alongside like that. You can make connections like this. Now you see here that this doesn't connect, but sometimes if you come back the other way, it will then connect up that way, and then you can just reverse it that way. The game can be a little bit temperamental, so what you can do is build up your own one-way roads, but be aware that the game treats these as separate roads. So the traffic will only cross over when you've got these connections here, but it does mean that you can build some fairly elaborate roads. So for example, you can come over and then bring that in there, and you can put another one alongside it like that. You can also come in, this again, this is something that what you want to do is practice with the game, and it's the same with coming into here. When you're joining a two-way road, you can come off like this. Just turn off the snapping, because snapping is causing problems. You can come off short distance like that and run along like that. You can also come off a fairly sharp angle. Now, sometimes the game, when you do this, it won't let you cross over that outside road, so you can only branch off from this side like that. So if you get this, so if you start there and it gets like this, and it does it, it just means that you've got that there. And of course, if you turn off F4, you can get this very strange effect where the road literally comes out the center of the road. Now, I haven't really tested this, but I don't recommend doing this actually, because I think what happens is that this is seen as a crossing road and can mess up your traffic. So I think I've covered most of the basics that you need to be aware about when you're actually building roads. What we're going to do now is move on to the next section, which is actually building a junction. Now, the first top tip I would give you is if you're going to build a very complex junction, what you need to be aware of is that you want to try and build one again with the one-way roads on the ground, and to get a pretty efficient junction, you've got to try and avoid actual proper junctions. What you're looking for is a traffic flow like this. And in fact, if you can optimize it, there's ways that you can actually optimize it, like I've done here, where you've got a forward road and a filter roads coming back inwards and back like this, so you can get merging traffic. When you're designing these junctions, what you want to do is try and avoid actually putting in a junction, say for example, because you could do this, you can do this, you can do something like that. Now, well, that looks good on the surface, but what you've got to remember is that this is a two-way road. The traffic here will come in here and go up that way. That's okay, but then you've got crossing traffic. This isn't really an ideal situation for a one-way road, because what you really want is traffic going off and traffic merging. You don't want to avoid junctions like this. So one top tip I would say is that if you're building a fairly complicated junction, just sketch out an outline on a piece of paper and make sure that you actually put all the directionality of the traffic in, so that you can see where the flows are and where the connections are. And also, if you're a bit like me who lives in the UK, if you're using one-way roads or even the two-way roads, just remember which side of the traffic is going in which direction. So what I'm going to do now is just move on, and we're going to put together a three-way junction. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get the on here, because I'm going to build a highway. We're going to just put in a two-way highway like this. Plenty of space, and what I'll do is I'll put the one-way traffic in so you can see which going. And what you see here is I'm actually using the grid, and I will accept that, as some of you have quite rightly pointed out, that if you're building these in game, you don't always get alignment with the grid. What I suggest is that when you're first practicing junctions, and always try them out on a flat piece of land, and just to get the feel of them, because if you actually understand what the junction looks like and which roads are connected, when you do have to put these together in a more awkward situation, then you've got a flow for the junction. It's also a good way to practice, actually. Now, the next thing I want to do is what we're going to do is we're going to have a road coming in here that's got to connect to this highway, which means we've got to put a bridge in. And I'm just going to build this concrete bridge, and what I want to do is 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5, and I'm going to do is drag the bridge in, and I'm going to press the E key 3 times. So it's 1 2 3, because that seems to be the optimal height. Now, if you want to be a bit crafty, if you turn off the snapping, you can just bring it in a little bit closer. But what I suggest is if you turn the snapping off, see the white cross below the bridge, what you want to do is keep that aligned with the grid. And this is one of the reasons why I was saying about actually building on the grid itself, because you can do that. And then what we're going to do is come across here, and we're just going to build a very narrow piece of road there like that. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do this in two ways. I'm going to do it in a kind of way where we're actually going to build a lot out there. Now, obviously, we're going to press Q down here, and what you'll find, and press F1, and then we can get the snapping back on again. What you see now is we've got the bridge over here. Now, returning to the point I made previously about crossing traffic. Now, obviously, this is a two-way road. This is right-hand drive. Now, a vehicle coming down here will want to go down this side of the road. So so rather than bring the road in here, which looks the obvious, because then you'd have a junction here, what you can do is come in here, get a one-way road here, and I'm just going to try and It's not up. No, I haven't got F4 on. See the mistake? Because I didn't have my F4 on. I need to turn off the F1, because what will happen is, see now I can bring this road out here, and what I'm looking to do, it's probably a little bit too far in, close in. Now the next thing you're going to use quite a lot when you're building is this circle, and I know you guys can't see it. There's on the little beige block just down where the cursor is at the bottom left hand corner of the green road. There's a thing, it says azimuth 85, and what I'm trying to do is get this to about 90 degrees, or as close to 90 degrees as I can get. Another way that you can do it is if you get there, I think that's about as close as we're going to get, is about 86 degrees. And then what I'm going to do, and this is what now where the fun starts, and I'm going to come out to about there, and what I'm going to do is connect around to there like that. Now I know I'm making this look easy because of course I've practiced this, because this is a junction that I do want to actually use in my 5-point series. Now sometimes the game can get a little bit stroppy when you come out this way because it sees the collision there. And what you can do is just put this back in, and sometimes the game will come in here. Sometimes it just won't play. Now there is a way you can fix that. If I come out here, take this back this way, and what I'm going to do now is we're just going to turn off the, get going to put a, I think the bridge may not be, no, I think what's happened here is this bridge isn't really down 100%. So we're just going to redo the bridge, push it down. Sometimes when you're actually doing something, if you press control, you can get rid of the thing, you can line it up like that. I'm just going to redo it. This is part of the fun and the frustration of this. Put the F4 back on. We can now get that out there, but I'm just going to put this back in again. And what we'll try and do is see if we can get this 165, and hopefully this time it will connect. So sometimes the game just has a funny 5 minutes, and what you can do is once you've got the connection, you can tidy it up a little bit by just doing things like that. And because we've got F4 snapping on but not the F1 snapping on, what we can do is just link the road through like that. And then what we can do is take this road like that. And what we've got now is we've got traffic coming up here onto this road here, which is a two-way road. And the traffic flows down through here. Of course, just press 1, push that out that way so we can use the two snappings together. And we've now got the road there. And the traffic that's coming up this side that wants to leave down that way, of course, we got the arrow the wrong way round. So next thing we need to do is turn off the F1. And we need to reverse the flow of the traffic. Comes into there. So the traffic leaving here can come round here and go that way. Now the next thing we need to do is get the traffic from that wants to come in here, wants to go up there. So what we can do now is just come here and just see where the game is being a little bit weird. Now you can come in this way like that, and what that, now that's 86%. kind of part of me. See. Now, if you really wanted to come off the road that side though, one thing you can do is something like that. If you do it this way, the game will actually let you come out this way like that. And then just put the back on again. Then we can bring that in there. That we can come into there. Again, what we can do now is just tidy this up, junction up a little bit. You'll find that when you're building these road type structures, you will end up doing quite lots of things because it's got this annoying kink here. Let me just take that out again. See if we can get this. That comes in here, comes that way, and of course what we'll do now is take this road down, and that will connect into there like that, and that's the junction finished. The traffic can come up here, go this way, and it can flow this way. But of course, if this road was going further out, it'd be a different problem. This is effectively a two-way road connecting to a highway, and you can see here the way this is built that there's no crossing traffic whatsoever except for these junctions going through. Now, one question you can ask is about the speed of these corners, because of course if trucks go round corners they slow down, so you could enhance this a little bit by making it into a true diamond. And just to show you that, so you can here, just turn that off. We can get that F4 back on again, and then just put you there, put you there. So what you could do, actually, just extend this out a bit, like that. So if you wanted a smoother break from the road, you can, then you could just come across like that and merge back into the traffic like that. What that would be is a higher speed junction, but of course it takes up more space, and of course you can do the reciprocal on that side as well. So when you're designing junctions, it's more of a question of what you're looking for aesthetically. I mean, personally, I wouldn't worry too much about this type of junction, unless of course I was connecting together two highways, which is basically what I was doing here. So just go through this in a bit more detail. So in these junctions here, I've built deliberately to make it compact, because I've built this for another reason, which is to allow a single road to cross over a motorway, but have these very elegant connections here. And what I mean by that is that if I put in a road there, what you can do then is do something like that, and then have two bridges over the highway here going out. So you can see that the way that the junctions can be designed is multitude. You can do all sorts of things. Now the next thing, so that kind of covers the basic principles, and obviously where you're building and what you're doing depends very much on where your location is. And I accept that this is on a flat map, but of course there are other variations that you can do. And then just to show you, we take out these. Say for example that you do have a bit of a terrain problem, or maybe you don't have a lot of space. What you can do is get rid of those, nick that back a little bit, and then another possible option is, I don't know if I can get it with the Q, and then you could just drop that down and angle that out a little bit like that. That's to the ground. And this is another reason why I'm saying that it pays just to do a little bit of experimentation when you're actually just do it. I mean, if you You don't want to do it in game. Just do it, you know, just start up a game like I've done, unlimited money, and then you can just connect that in like that. And what that is that kind of makes the junction a little bit more compact and a little bit more interesting, because you know that the road's going to curve over there like that. I will give you one warning, guys. This is addictive. I was it yesterday? I was looking at different junctions, partly in prep for this video and partly in prep for the 5-point series. And I spent a complete afternoon just building different types of junctions and experimenting with different road layouts, because you can do all sorts of things. Like, let's say, for example, you don't like that, you can come down here, you can get that there, you can run this way, you can create a filter like that. And then if you think you're going to get lots of traffic, you can kind of come out like that. To say, it is very, very addictive. And then you can kind of come in there. That won't do that final link. But what you should be able to do is up here, and you can hook in there. So I know it's a bit silly here, but say for example you had highway over here, and you wanted a double feed off of here for some reason, you could do it. No, so what I want to do now is just finish up by talking about the use of the cloning tool. Now, what I will say is that the cloning tool isn't stable when you've got complex road junctions, and just to illustrate that, if I come here, if I copy the whole of this junction and take it over here, you can see where I've been trying it out. What you'll find is that if it builds up, of course there we are, you can see here, what you get is things like this, but you can normally fix them. But cloning can save you a lot of time when you're actually building. Oops, no, because it's I got the snapping on. Just make sure I've got when you're fixing this, it pays to not actually have the snapping on. Oops, no, bridge. No, it's probably not connecting to that bridge there. You probably need to take that out. Redo the have to drop that in there like that, and then hopefully that will. It's obviously probably that road there is not helping. So no, this isn't actually gone fully to the ground. That's the problem. So I need to it's done that connection there. So yeah, so cloning is not 100% stable, but what you can do is use cloning to save time. Say for example you've got, say you're building this, what you can do is come in here and you can, whoops, no. When you want accurate cloning, what you've got to, it pays to actually turn on the, and what you need to do is rotate the camera a little bit so that you can if you can get it right, which I'm not doing at the moment, it can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes it pays to come out. Say for example, like in the case of this junction, say for example we wanted to do a single road version of this, we can do that, and then what we could do is turn this round. I'm gonna have to remove that road because the game will complain. Another hazard of cloning is that You can see here that the buttress from the bridge has got in the way, but what you can do is redo it. Just take that out, and then if I clone this again, and then we need to press Control, and what you can do, so if you've got something that's got a degree of symmetry in it, and then what we'll probably need to do is take out there. We need to take out both of them, and these as well. It's probably not a good example, by the way, guys. But and then so it's and basically that's what I did to build this, but obviously I did it a lot more slower and it took several attempts. But so you can save yourself a lot of work sometimes when you're actually trying to build something. And that brings me on to the final, what I'd call the most, another useful part of cloning. And this is when you're actually playing a game and you know that you're actually going to be using a lot of motorways, and you've spent a lot of time creating a junction like this. As I say, I've already alluded to this, but say for example, you've got this junction here, and what you can do is, well, there's two approaches. One, you find an area on the map that's flat or where you can work, and you build a junction like this. When you get it all set up there, and then you just keep it there. Then what you can say is, I need a one road connection in here. You just go up here, there, pick up the clone, then you go to wherever on the map is where you want to drop something in, and you can just drop it in. And then if you want another one, you can come in here. Now the game is a little bit forgiving if you're on a slope. It's just, as long as it doesn't turn red like that, and then you can, well, I could have connected up if I orientated it properly. But that's another advantage of cloning. But be aware that, I mean, a simple junction like this, it's not so bad, except for the fact you can see that the actual bridge connection now is in the center of the road. But I don't know if that one is, I think it's got down to the fact that when the game's calculating the positions of bridges, it doesn't really take things into account. But what you can do, I mean, most of them are relatively easy to fix one way or another, so it's not like the end of the world. If you know you're going to be using a lot of motorways, like I will be in my 5-point series, what you want to do is create your junctions somewhere in a corner of the map where you can use it, and then put it in. And even if it doesn't work properly, again, just to show you that, because even if it's not perfect, so again, if we come in here, sometimes if you go off and do something else and then come back in again, it will actually, so say for example, or we'll go back over here where there's a bit of rough terrain. If we can find some rough terrain, we got, say for example, just here, so you've got, see if we can get it even rougher. Oh. Okay, even rougher. What you'll see is that game will sometimes be a little bit forgiving. Say for example, just like that, it won't let you build it because it's got red in it, but what it will do is give you a footprint of knowing where you need to level. But of course you can also use sections of a clone as well. So if you want to do a modification, you can do a subset by cutting out, say, that section. Anyway, guys, I think I've gone on long enough, so this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you found this video interesting. Any tips, suggestions, comments, feel free to put it in the video description and we'll have a chat about it. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.